It is another episode of the Juice on the Cuse podcast. Wes Cheng alongside Brad Bierman. Thanks so much for joining us on this Tuesday, March 11, 2025. We've got so much to talk about. Let's start with the ACC Tournament. Syracuse is the number 14 seed. They are fresh off an impressive home win over Virginia to close the regular season. They will face 11-seeded Florida State. Brad, you will be there in press row this evening. How do you see this game going?
Well, Wes, I think that the Syracuse team is peaking at the right time, and you put that in relative terms for a team that's played under 500 basketball this season. But saw an energetic practice session Monday afternoon at the Spectrum Center. Coach Autry was laughing, seemed in good spirits, but also intense at the same time. Team seems loose and ready and relaxed. And let's face it, the last 4 games of the season, they played good basketball, beating NC State and, of course, blowing the lead at Virginia Tech, but playing well on the road up to the end there, and the same at SMU. Tough to win on the road, as we all know, for Syracuse basketball in the ACC, and then the strong performance against Virginia. Battle of the big men in this game against Florida State, shooting from the outside. If Syracuse can play a consistent game, which, Wes, they haven't played many 40-minute consistent games this season. It's really going to be important to do that. I like the bench substitute rotation late in the season. So I think Syracuse is in the best spot it can be in a one-and-done situation heading into this tournament Tuesday night.
Yeah, Brad, I agree. I see this being a competitive game between Florida State and Syracuse. And I know you look back at the last 4 games, but I really look back to how the Oranges played since they were throttled by Duke at home. So that was 8 games ago. So, 3-5, not the most impressive record, but in those 8 games, their biggest margin of defeat was against Pitt. And that's a game that Syracuse actually led for the majority of the game. They lost by 11. So you talked about, they played well on the road at Virginia Tech and at SMU. They held leads in both of them till the closing moment. So I really think they played their 2 most complete games against Virginia and in their previous win against NC State. So I know a lot of people are down on Syracuse this season. You are what your record says you are. Syracuse is 13-18, but I see Syracuse competing against Florida State. I think they ultimately win this game to advance to the second round. I know the Seminoles did defeat SMU to close the season, but they had lost 4 games before that in a row, and that includes a 3-point loss to the very same Virginia team that Syracuse just soundly defeated 84-70. So again, I'm calling a Syracuse victory here. I expect them to see them in round 2.
And there's one other game I wanted to add to the ones we've just talked about, NC State and Virginia, was way back that Georgia Tech win in the Dome. If you remember back, that was also one of the better performances of the year. They were so far in between. And I wanted to add these other couple notes locally, here in Charlotte and attending the games. And I think there's going to be a nice Syracuse turnout of fans. So there'll be a little bit of a buzz on what, let's face it, is not a buzzy day of a tournament the first day with 3 games and Syracuse being the final of the triple header. And the factor, as you mentioned, Florida State played well against SMU, had not played well before that. The Leonard Hamilton factor. We've kind of seen this before a couple years ago. Jim Boeheim in Greensboro, his final game. We know the final loss for this year for Florida State will be Leonard Hamilton's final game. So is it an intangible or not? Something to look for on the Florida State side, Wes.
Sure. And Brad, we do move on. Syracuse lacrosse was its first win over a top 10 team this season. They knocked off number 7 Johns Hopkins in convincing fashion, 13-10 on Sunday. Brad, this is the win that I think I was expecting earlier in the year against Maryland, but it does seem like Syracuse hit all the right notes in their win over their longstanding rivals.
Well, it certainly was a must-win in the sense of respect and where the team's status is standing here. And I'm going to kind of say Mullen, McCool, and Marvelous is some takeaways of my own here with Mullen at the face-off dot was very strong for Syracuse in having possessions. McCool in the goal for Syracuse, a very strong game, as was the inside defense. And Marvelous, that second half hidden ball trick goal, Sammy English and Joey Spallina, that was just really marvelous and really caught Johns Hopkins completely by surprise. And I think it was an emotional turning point in that game because you knew the Jays were going to come back in the fourth quarter, take it right down to the end. Important win. Team gets 9 days off before the next game. I think that's important. Manhattan to come in the Dome, kind of tune back up before that final stretch of Cornell, Notre Dame, Virginia, Duke, North Carolina. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, so Brad, one thing I wanted to point out here was that Syracuse, you mentioned John Mullen, they really struggled to face off X in that first period, down 7-2 in that category. Gary Gate even tried putting Drew Angelo out there at one point. But, to Syracuse's great credit, that didn't slow them down at all. They actually scored the first 3 goals of the game. They finished that first quarter tied at 4. And again, Mullen got going, and he ended up winning 13 of 23 faceoffs. So one other thing I wanted to point out, I've been talking a lot about wanting to see this junior class led by Joey Spallina display some composure. That's exactly what happened in the fourth quarter. It tied at 10 midway through. Then there was that 3-goal spurt led by who else? Owen Hiltz and Joey Spallina. That's what I expected from this group heading into the season. That's what played out on Sunday.
Yeah, let's see if the momentum continues. Really important for this team to take this win and grow.
So we're going to take a quick break. Baye Moussa Keita will join us when we return. This is the Juice on the Cuse podcast. This is the Bet Online read. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from the NBA to college basketball to the NHL and UFC. Bet Online continues to be your number one betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, Bet Online has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. Back on the Juice on the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng here with you. It is our great pleasure, as always, to be welcoming on the program Baye Moussa Keita, former Syracuse great. How are you, Baye?
I'm doing great. I just got back from New York after a 3-week, almost a month in Arsley, New York with Nick Reserve. So he's a Arsley girls basketball coach, and they were in the playoff, and I went out there to help him coach.
So how'd they do, Baye?
So they did great. So this is the first time the girls have won the section 1. They got to the final in 2015, and this is 2025. So 10 years later, they got in the final. So they finally won it. So Nick is the first coach to win the gold ball for the Arsley girls basketball team, and it was definitely a lot of emotions.
That's amazing. And we were talking pre-show, and I remember Nick because he did all those trick shots. He had that great trick shot video. So it's good to hear that he's doing really well and coaching up Ardsley.
Yeah, it's definitely, he after graduating, I went and played pro, started working for the NBA. He did the other route. He started working for Brooklyn for a couple of years. And after that, getting into coaching, started a program called North East Elite, which is an AAU program, which is doing really well too in that area, Arsley, New Rochelle, and the Westchester area. So it's kind of great to see him being involved in youth sport, because most people don't really focus on youth sport. And I think having someone like him doing that is actually really great. Just kind of spread the knowledge he has. And he brought me in alongside that. He's like, look, I have a couple of bigs. One of them is actually going to San Bonaventure. And it's like, just help her out throughout this playoff run. And it's been great.
Yeah. So speaking of youth, again, this is something we were talking about pre-show. We are in year 6 of the BMK Camp. Baye, we have you on every year to talk about this great cause. We are thrilled to have you talk about it again. So number one, how can we help? 2, I know that you're talking about some of the things that you're going to add to the camp this year and some of the things that you built over time. So please tell us more about what you plan for year 6 of the BMK Camp. Yeah,
so the year 6 of BMK Camp, it's definitely been like you said, we were just talking. I can't believe it's year 6. It's kind of been going so fast. It's just like that. I started from, when I graduated, I just wanted to be involved in my community. And then I'm like, okay, why don't I just start a camp? And then years later, we have new hoops. The court had been refurbished. We built 2 bathrooms last year. And throughout this process, I'm like, it's great. The kids come, for the day, and then we feed 150 people. So my mom and sisters are the one cooking the food for lunch for them. It's great. The kids get to have this great experience. But I'm like, basketball is important, but let me start doing more community involvement. And I did a lot of research the past year just to make sure that okay, what I really wanted to focus on. And food insecurity is a big thing in Senegal. But like you said, I've been gone for so long, and I kind of not attached really to the community. So the past year, I just been really calling. I mean, it's great to call people and stuff, but I call women that I grew like my mom, like the neighbors, and just asking like, what's the big deal in Senegal? And it's like, people don't have food to eat. So I'm like, wow. And then it was like, I'm like, how much does it cost? So after I did a lot of research, it's literally $85 to feed a family of 3 or 4 for a month. So
Wow.
it's just like the goal this year, I'm just trying to raise as much money possible. My goal is to do 100 family, but it's going to be whatever I can raise. So they're going to get 50 pounds of rice. I mean, this is like 50 pounds of rice, 10 kilos of, which is about 20, if you give her 20 pounds of sugar, and get them oil too, because those 3 things are the main things that people use. The protein, and that, like, we have a lot of fish, we have a lot of things, but like people need rice. Rice is like the source of things. Rice, and that's it. Those 3 things, if you have any household you go in Senegal, you find rice, oil, and sugar. Those are the 3 main items that you're going to find on any Senegalese household. I mean, on average, the Senegalese people will eat, I mean, I would say sure that it's over 187 pounds of rice a year. That's the average amount of rice that people eat in Senegal. So my goal this year is just to raise money and just, I mean, I will do my camp, but it's going to be more a little bit focused on also community outreach. Like some of the players that's going to be in my clinics, parents will come and we'll give them this rice, oil, and sugar. That's kind of that's the thing I'm focused on this year. Yeah, and see how it goes. So it's the first time someone like a basketball player like me coming back, and yeah, basketball is important, but like now see how I can help my community, because that's the people that raised me. So kind of my way of giving back.
Yeah, so it's important, of course, basketball being a metaphor for life, but also, helping along with all those other things. That's incredibly impressive. We'll help out in any way we can. We'll, of course, include a link for all the listeners. But I wanted to shift your attention to the basketball court. We've been, talking tangentially about basketball. Let's talk about Syracuse basketball. I know it's been a tough season. I know there's a lot of frustration, but what do you think went wrong? And what is it like for you as a distinguished alum who's, I point this out every time you come on the podcast, you were one of the most winning players in the entire program. Program's fallen a bit of hard times. What's that like for you seeing this?
No, it's been tough. As a former, like I went there preseason, talked to Red. Bierman was there too, so we get to talk. And it's just, I think the problem we're having is just like we need to get NIL is a big thing. And I think that's one I mean, let's just be like, as the other schools kind of are blowing us out of the water. But like I see an initiative the other day that basketball and football are trying to raise money to kind of help with the NIL program. And I think that's the biggest challenge. Like, when we were there, you can get any type of caliber of players without having to worry about like NIL. So now NIL is like people don't really want to, everybody from the outside can say, oh, we don't have a good team. We don't have a good team. We don't have a good team because we're not getting this NIL money to help us recruit the players that we used to recruiting. So it's kind of that challenge. And, it's been frustrating as a former player watching. It's like I'm sitting there, I'm like, I mean, as a program, this is kind of like we haven't been ranked, which is like, for me, it was like weird to kind of not see, because I'm like, I mean, when I was there, we were ranked, top 3 in the country every year. I'm like, one year we were 25-0, like 20-0. Nick and I was talking about it. I'm like, it was never a question if we go into the NCAA tournament. It's like, where are we going to the NCAA
what's
tournament?
Your seed?
Like, what's seeding? So we never had to worry about that. But now it's just like, it's just challenging for Red to kind of figure out the X's and O's. And top of that, have to figure out the NIL portion of things. I mean, Red is a great coach. I told people, like, I was there with him for almost 3 years. I say he's a great coach. He knows exactly what to do. And I think he's a great choice. They didn't make a wrong choice. I mean, let's just see what happens in the next upcoming year. I think he's, is going to be challenging because of, NIL, but I think he has plans and set to just going to help him be successful for the upcoming year. And then again, like people need to be patient. Like, things are not going to change overnight. Let's make sure the changes of guards, give them a little bit of time, a little bit of grace, because the frustration is building up. Oh, but how long have you been there? 2 seasons? Like 2 going to 3 now. And then people are like, oh, he got it. Coach Boeheim leave a legacy behind. Let's be patient a little bit. Let this succession go through the process, because we're gonna win. Like, us as a former player, we talk about it. There's gonna be like a headaches in between, like the transition, but how the program handles it is gonna be a huge thing.
Yeah, and Baye, we'll get you out of here on this one. You talked about, being patient, and I think there's a lot of optimism because of the talent coming in. It's weird seeing Carmelo Anthony's son now coming. I'm sure that's a little strange for you to see that as well, but they have a talented recruiting class coming in. You talked about being patient. It seems like you're optimistic that year 3 will be a really good year for Red Autry.
Yeah, I mean, year 2 is going to be a great year. Have no doubt about that. I'm like, just people just need to be a little bit patient. Like we also ready to like just jump into like, hey, like win. I'm like, yeah, we had a winning culture. If you look at the NCAA, I'm looking at. I'm like, programs go up and down. Look at like, you're gonna say UConn isn't a good program because they're having a losing season, like after winning 2 national championships. So it was just like, I mean, I'm going to Africa for the Basketball Africa League. So, I mean, I'm going to keep my eye open. I was like, hey, XYZ player is good. Maybe like Syracuse would be an option. So it's just, let's just be patient. I think I'm really optimistic. And it's just like, because Reddy's a great coach. The staff is great. So I think just give them a chance. Like people are not so quick to like just move on, but let's give them a chance.
Baye, we always appreciate you coming on. Again, I wish you all the best in the BMK Camp year 6. Again, we'll make sure that we get all the support that we can to you. And again, it's great to talk to you. Great to talk Syracuse hoops. We'll catch up with you soon. Good luck with camp.
Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Yep.
The Juice Online podcast on the Believe and Rivals.com networks with my longtime colleague, Wes Cheng. I'm Brad Bierman. And Wes, attending the Syracuse practice Monday at the Spectrum Center, had a chance to talk with some of the other teams' broadcasters who are on hand. And one of those was Pittsburgh's longtime broadcaster, Bill Hillgrove. And he shared with me the sad news of the passing of former Syracuse football great Craig Wolfley, who played in the late 70s, was a 5th-round draft pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1980, had a fantastic 12-year NFL career. He passed away Monday from liver cancer at the age of 66. Certainly want to send condolences to the Wolfley family for Craig's passing.
Yeah, Wolfley was a really important part of building that Syracuse legacy, especially in that critical period from the late 70s to early 80s when Syracuse really needed to come out of its own shell after a dry period. So it's really important to honor his legacy. And, I want to send my condolences as well. Brad, moving on, I wanted to close the show on, speaking of Syracuse legacies, we all know about Kiyan Anthony following in his father's footsteps to play for the basketball team starting this fall. Well, how about a little potential happening in football? That's right. Donovan McNabb Jr. receiving a scholarship offer as a 2027 wide receiver over the weekend. He, of course, is the son of Syracuse legend Donovan McNabb. We had a chance to speak with him over at the Juice Online and about his offer. Donovan Jr. telling us, quote, "It felt great to receive the offer since my dad had a great career there and had a history of achievements," end quote. He already holds over half a dozen offers, so this is a recruitment that Syracuse will really need to work on if they want to see and build that legacy recruit. But just great to see Syracuse getting involved in Donovan Jr.'s recruitment.
Quick question, Wes. You feeling old? Because I am.
From Leo to Andy Routens, and then from Kiyan to from Jim Boeheim to Buddy Boeheim to Jimmy Boeheim. I mean, there's all sorts of legacy happening at Syracuse.
I'm scared I'm going to be around long enough to see somebody's grandson play for the Orange, much less their son.
With any luck. So that's it for us. For Brad Bierman, this is Wes Cheng. You've been listening to the Juice on the Cuse podcast presented by Believe in Rivals, and we will see you next time.